Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm very happy to be here tonight and visit with you. And I'm so glad that you came back to see me. Now be sure and stay for the whole video because at the end I'm going to make an announcement about my giveaway for the new people who are here don't know about that. You'll need to get the information so you can get in on that. Now what I want to talk to you about tonight is something very serious. And this is part of my Frugal Friends video. I have some notes here, so if I'm looking down every once in a while, that's what I'm doing. Um, these are things that, as I've gotten older, I've realized over the years that I've made a lot of mistakes in my life that have caused me to be in the situation that I'm in. I am retired and living on Social Security, but I'm also working part-time because the Social Security is not enough to live on. And the reason I'm making this video tonight is for those of you out there who still have a chance to set your future up, that you won't fall into the same trap that I did and make these mistakes. I wasn't brought up in a home where I was taught financial keeping and how to handle my money right, and I just kind of learned as I went along, and I didn't do a very good job of it. So I have some notes here of some things that I want to talk to you about. These are mistakes that I've made in my life. And I'm hoping that you will learn from my mistakes so that you don't have the same issues in your life. And the first one is that I had never studied or tried hard enough in school to really learn anything. I just didn't really like school, so I didn't apply myself to it. I could have done better. I know that there were some subjects that I did like. Biology and science and English, I enjoyed those. But I hated history and social study. I was not any good at math. And I basically just did the minimum that I had to do to get through. And I could have done better, but I didn't apply myself. So those of you out there who are still in school, do the very best you can and apply yourself, learn as much as you can, and make good grades. And the second thing is, this was a really big mistake that I made. I dropped out of school early. I was 16 and a half when I dropped out of school, and that was so that I could get married. I think it was like 2 weeks before my my junior year to graduate, and I dropped out, which my parents signed for me to get married. That was a big mistake, and I've regretted that for a long time, that I dropped out at 16. I could have struggled through that last year and at least got my high school diploma. It made it very difficult for me when I was out looking for work because I did not have a GED or a high school diploma. Now, a lot of the places that you try to get jobs at now, they require that. I was lucky enough that I grew up in the generation where having a GED or a high school diploma was not that important. If they needed help and you were available, you could get hired. Another thing that I did wrong was I never went to college for my career, which dropping out of school was part of that problem. Growing up, I had always hoped that I would go to school and learn how to be a veterinarian because I liked animals. I liked working with animals and stuff. But dropping out of high school is not going to get you admitted into college, even with a scholarship. You're going to have your high school diploma to get into any kind of a college. College training is very important. You need to have some kind of a training or some kind of a career behind you so that you can have a better chance in the workforce. And another thing that I made a mistake of, I never would stay at any one particular job for a very long time. If I had started on the first job that I went on and stayed there and worked my entire life, not only would I have been making good wages, but I would have retired probably with a pension and a better salary for retirement. But I was jumping around from one job to the next. I think the longest that I did stay was one of the jobs that I had, one of my last jobs. And I stayed there 19 years, going almost 20. But most of the jobs I lasted anywhere from 9 months to 3 years. That doesn't leave a good track record for you. When you fill out an application and you're putting down all those jobs that you've worked at for a short time and left, that really reflects badly on you. So please, if those of you out there are working and have a good job, if you can tough it out and stay there, If you like the work enough to stay there, please do that. Don't go jumping around from one job to another unless you can better yourself. I don't blame anybody for leaving one job to get to a better job. Another thing that I did wrong when I did have a job, I missed a lot of work so that I could party. I would call in sick when I wasn't really sick. And I would do this closer to the weekend so that I could have the weekends off to party. Back in my younger days, I was a party girl. I did a lot of that stuff. And holding down a job, I guess, just wasn't, as long as I had a certain amount of dollars coming on my paycheck that week, I would call in sick and miss work. That looks bad on your attendance record for a job. And if another company calls the place that you're working at for a reference, and they tell them that you were prone to miss a lot of work, that reflects badly on you. I wasted a lot of money drinking because during my heydays selling my wild oats, I was running the bars. It was not unusual for me on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to be spending my free time at the bar, paying for drinks, which probably didn't cost a lot back in them days. I guess comparing it to the wages, it probably did. But I know that I wasted more money than was really necessary, drinking and partying and doing all that stuff. So I don't have nothing against anybody wanting to have fun when they're younger, but you should set like a limit to how much you're going to spend that night and don't just go crazy with it. I was taking money away from bills that I needed to pay so that I could go out and party with my friends. And I would be like, oh, I'll let that bill go until another week, and I just wouldn't pay it. And that brings me to my next thing. I didn't pay my bills in a timely manner. You need to build up good credit. I had bad credit for a very long time, and that was part of the reason because I did not pay my bills the way they needed to be paid. Like, for instance, if I had a payment due for a certain amount, I wouldn't send the full amount. I'd just send them part of it, like $10, $15 sometimes. If I had like a $30 payment, I might send them a 10 or 15. Sometimes I'd miss an entire month of a payment, which means you get late charges added on there. And then the next month, you've got 2 payments to make plus the late charges. I wasn't a very responsible person, and I realize that now. That's the reason my credit was so bad, was because I was not paying my bills in a timely manner. I didn't have a budget. And I do have a budget now, and in one of my future videos, I will go over with you how I set up my budget, how I handle my money. But I didn't have any idea how I was going to handle stuff. It was just like when payday came, I would pay whatever bill was due, part of a bill that was due, and the rest of it, if I had 5 bills, I might pay 2 or 3, and the other 2 would just wait. And then I would take the leftover money and go party with it. I should have been paying what I could on the bills. Any money that I had left, I should have been hanging on to it to put with next week's paycheck to pay those bills then. But I didn't do that. I never balanced my checkbook. Now, I did have a checking account. Probably most of my younger years, I had a checking account. But I was never good about balancing my checkbook. I wasn't showed how to do it. So I didn't really know how to do it. So because of me not writing down when I wrote a check, we didn't have debit cards back then. You wrote checks, paper checks. When I wrote a check, if I didn't enter it in the check register and the money wasn't there because I didn't balance it and subtract it from the checks that I'd written before, checks bounced. And I had a lot of checks bounce. Now, back in the old days, when you had a check bounce, the bank would go ahead and cover it for you, and you just put the money in there on your next deposit. They didn't charge you a fee. But after time went on, the banks got to where if you had a check come in that didn't clear, they would bounce the check, send it back to the person, charge you a fee, an overdraft fee, and they could be anywhere from $20 to $35. I had a lot of overdraft fees on my banking account because I wasn't balancing my checkbook in a way that was financially responsible. Not only did it make me be overdraft on that check, any other checks that came in behind it would also bounce and get sent back, which meant you had to go to the place where the check was written, have the money to pick that check up from them. Sometimes they charged you a little service fee too for picking up a bounced check, an overdraft check. So please, if you have a checking account, keep it in good order. Balance your checkbook. Write down your debit cards that you use and any paper checks. A lot of people don't even use paper checks nowadays. But write down your paper checks that you use. Enter everything in your check register. I didn't set aside a savings account for my retirement. It just wasn't a thing. I didn't even have a savings account at all. I had a checking account and that was it. Money would go. Usually it was like the money would go in on Friday. By Monday, there was no money left in the checking account. I really didn't even need to have a checking account. I could have probably just got money orders. But I did have a checking account. Didn't set any savings account up, and I should have. I should have had some kind of a savings account. Now, I had a lot of jobs that paid very good money. I was making good money, but I was wasting it away by not doing these simple things that I'm telling you. Check if you have a checking account, balance it. And if you can and you can set up a savings account, put in a little bit each payday. For those of you who are working regular jobs, every little bit's going to matter when you become old enough to retire. At one job, I had a 401k, and I did not contribute enough money to that 401k. Now, it was a company matched 401k, which meant if I put in $5, the company would match $5. So that was like free money, which meant I had $10 going in there. But they set it up on a percentage. You picked out what percentage of your paycheck went in. When I got pay raises there in December, I should have upped my 401k and let them take more money out. If they take it out of your check before you get it, you're not as likely to miss it as when you cash your check and you have it in your hand. So I did not set enough money in that 401k. I could have built that thing up to where I had a really good 401k and had money to retire on, along with a savings account, which I didn't have, and I didn't do it. So those of you who are working in a place that you have a 401k, contribute to it as much as you're possibly able to contribute. Okay. Also on the 401k, the company that I worked with, you were allowed to borrow money from your 401k. If you had a certain amount of money in there, you were allowed to borrow a percentage of it. Now you had to pay it back. And when you paid it back, it was just like a loan payment, so there was an interest charge. But the good thing about it was when you paid it back with the interest, you were actually paying it to yourself. So like if you borrowed $30, you might pay back $35, but that $35 was going to you. It wasn't going to a loan company or something. I was constantly deleting the amount of money that I could borrow from my 401k. I think we were allowed to borrow twice a year. Well, guess what? Twice a year, I borrowed from my 401k. And that's another reason why my 401k wasn't very big when I got to the point of retiring. It's because I was taking the money out and, I was putting it back in because they took it out of your check. But that's really not the way that you need to do. If you have your finances in order to where you're able to live on your paycheck, you shouldn't have to touch that 401k. When I was shopping for something, clothes, furniture, appliances, whatever, I did not compare prices. Not like I do now. If something I wanted now, I wait until it goes on sale or till after a while the price drops down on it and I can get it cheaper. I have like a certain amount set in my mind of what I'm going to pay, and I simply will not buy it until it gets to that point. Back in them days, that's not something I did. If I needed something, like back then it was a VCR, I just went and bought the VCR. I didn't wait till it went on sale or it was 30% off, or I didn't go on a yard sale site and try to find it cheaper. I just went and bought it. But it's a very good idea if you can wait on something and you can compare the prices, shop around a little bit and find it a little bit cheaper. I ate out all the time instead of cooking at home. Now, I did take my lunch to work. I didn't eat out of the vending machines, not very often. And I didn't leave the the parking lots to go to McDonald's or Burger King or something like that. I did brown bag my lunch. But I ate when I was off work in the evenings, the afternoons, on the weekends or whatever, because I was working nights at some jobs. I was constantly eating out instead of cooking a meal at home. I could have cooked a casserole or a bowl of soup or something at the house, that a pot of soup or beans or something that I could have ate on for 2 or 3 days. I did not do that. There was very little food bought and put in my icebox and my cupboards because I ate out all the time. It was just easier for me to do it because I was running around, going here and there, shopping, buying things not on sale, and then that night getting to the bar so I could get drunk. So eating out was just a way of life. It's better for you if you can eat as many meals at home. Cook and freeze what you can, divide it up into dishes and eat off it for 2 or 3 days and eat out. Now, I'm not saying never eat out, because I still do eat out like maybe once or twice a month. And that's nothing spectacular. It's like go through a drive-through and get like a 99-cent hamburger or a $3 meal, combo. But cooking at home is the best way to do it. I constantly took out personal loans. After I got to a point where my credit was built up, I finally got it back to where it was built up a lot. I'm trying to find, I must have skipped something here. Oh yeah, I did. I skipped that up there. I took out personal loans just because I could. I could go in there. There wasn't nothing I really needed. But if I could go in there and they'd loan me $800, I'd take out the loan. I might have like 3 companies with a personal loan that I had money taken out from. Of course, when you borrow $800, you end up paying it back with a finance charge. You have regular payments that come out each month, so you're actually creating another bill that you probably don't need to have. Personal loans now are all paid off, and I have no plans to make any more personal loans if I can keep away from it. I got to go back up here to one. I ran off and forgot one up here. After my credit got built up to a point where it was better, I started getting credit card applications in the mail. Guess what I did? I took every one of them. If I was in the store shopping and they had a credit card application at the cash register, I pulled it out and took it home with me and filled it out. I got credit cards from stores all over the place. Every kind of credit card that I could get, I got. Now, I don't know exactly how credit cards affect your credit score, but my credit was good enough to where they were going to give me the credit card, so I went ahead and took it. I went ahead and got as many credit cards as I could. And you know how when you have a credit card and they send you that statement in the mail telling you, like if you've used it and you've charged a little bit on it and they tell you have some a payment to make, and they send you those checks in there with it where you can get a cash advance on your credit card? I did that too. There might be a certain amount that I could take, but whenever I got the bill, if there was some blank checks in there, I'd take them to the bank and cash them and draw the money out because I could. That meant I had a bigger credit card payment the next month. Okay, where am I at? All right, and this one company that I worked for back in the 70s, I don't even know if places still do this anymore. This was back in the 70s. They had a savings bond plan where you could pay a little bit out of your check each week, and they would give you one savings bond each month. And I think they were matured like in 25 years. So I signed up for it so they could take that little bit of money out of my check each week and give me the savings bonds. I never saved them. I hung on to them. I forget how long you had to hang on to it, a certain little bit of time. And then you could cash them in. You didn't get a whole lot back on them. I was constantly cashing them in. I'd get them, and as soon as they got to the point where I could get money back out of them, I'd take them and cash them in. Now just think, if every one of those savings bonds that I had bought back in the 70s, if I had hung on to them till now, that was way past the 25 years. Think how much money I would have had. But I didn't do it. It was like a little extra paycheck, so I cashed them in and cashed the savings bond in and took the money. Um, I didn't take care of my cars. My ideal of taking care of a car, putting gas in it. That was it. I didn't wash them, not very often. I might every once in a while, run through a car wash. I didn't change the oil in them. I didn't rotate the tires in them. I didn't top off the fluids in them. I didn't vacuum them out on the inside very often. Every once in a while, I'd take a whisk broom and knock some rocks out. I didn't take care of my cars. If I would have done the things that I did, probably cars would have lasted me a lot longer than they did. But I just neglected to do it. It was empty. It needed gas. I put gas in it so I could go where I needed to go. And that was the end of it. If you're lucky enough to have a vehicle, take care of the vehicle. I never carried insurance on my cars. I'm coming off sounding horrible. These are just things that I realize now as I'm older that I should have done. There was a time when it wasn't really mandatory that you have insurance on your car. It was suggested. It was a nice ideal, but you didn't really have to have it as a law. When you went to get your license on your car, they made you sign a piece of paper saying, yes, I have insurance. They didn't check. They didn't ask for an insurance card. So you could sign it and say, yeah, I have insurance. You got your license renewed, and they never checked on it. Now when you go in, you have to take your proof of insurance showing that you actually do have the insurance on the car. But I never carried insurance on it because they didn't make me carry it. I was a safe driver. I thought I was a safe driver. I don't know about the people around me. I could have been hit at any time, knock on wood, but I don't need insurance. I'm a safe driver. So I never got insurance on my cars. This is a very stickler thing here now that I'm going to tell you about. Payday loans. That is the worst situation to get yourself into. I had payday loans out. I remember one time I had as many as 7 payday loans. And I mean, if somebody went and borrowed the money, at the end of 2 weeks, you get to keep it for 2 weeks. Then you're supposed to go and pay it off. Now, if you borrowed it and at the end of 2 weeks you went and paid it, it might not be such a bad thing. But that's not what I did. I was going in, and the people in there were saying like, well, if you give us the $9 or $11 interest, you can keep that for another 2 weeks. So hey, that was the extra money in my pocket. So I'd just give them the interest and keep it for another 2 weeks. But it got to the point where I was taking out so many of them, and 2 or 3 of them would come due in 1 week, and I'd go to one and pay it off and reborrow it and then take that money and go and pay off another one, and do the same thing. Now, I did manage to pay some of them completely off by borrowing from another payday loan. But guess what happened? 2 or 3 weeks later, I needed money. I went right back in there and I renewed it and borrowed the money again. The people were so nice and friendly to me to give me that money, and they let me pay the interest on it. That's how I lived. Payday loans are high interest, and it's very hard once you start taking out a payday loan. It's extremely hard to get out from under them. I don't have any right now. I'm not planning on ever having any more. God protect me from that. I do not want to get into that trap again. Okay. I bought useless junk all the time. Just junk. Things I could have lived without very easily. I like to read, so I bought books. Tons of books. Every time I went to the mall or TJ Maxx or Kmart or any store that I was in that had books, I picked them up. Magazines, went to the mall, to the bookstore there. I bought Avon, all kinds of Avon jewelry and makeup, which, I do use the makeup and stuff, but I bought more of it than I needed. All I really needed was like one little compact of eyeshadow, maybe one lipstick and a blush. But I was buying like tons of different types of makeup when it would come on sale and jewelry and stuff. Just crap, basically. Things that I could have lived without. I never even considered about retirement. That's a long time away. I'm a young person. 65 is years off. So I never thought about it. Plus, I also thought that when you became 65 and you retired, Uncle Sam was going to take care of you. Well, guess what? I was wrong. When you turn 65 and you retire, Uncle Sam does not take care of you. Yeah, he'll give you a little check. But any medical part that you get, you got to pay for that yourself. I wish people had told me this stuff when I was younger. Not that I would have listened to them. I probably wouldn't have listened to them. But I always thought, hey, when I get old enough to retire, I'll live off that Social Security check. Well, guess what? I'm retired now, drawing a Social Security check, and I'm back to work. Because the check that I'm getting, I can't live where I'm living and pay my bills without having supplemental income. So I've had to go back to work at my age. When I was working and had a check coming in, good money, I was buying lottery tickets every week. Now, I might just buy one ticket a week, but there were some weeks when I bought 3 or 4 or 5. You know, if I bought one $10 lottery ticket every week, that's $40 a month. That's a payment that I could have paid on something else. That could have went on a water bill or electric bill. It could have put gas in my car. It could have bought insurance for my car. But I kept thinking, one of these days I'm going to scratch off the big one. So I kept buying lottery tickets every single week. Now, I don't buy lottery tickets anymore very often. I might buy one $5 ticket every 3 months, if that. I buy them for gifts to send to people, but I do not buy the lottery tickets every single week like I did back then. This next one here was something that I have so much regretted in my life right now. They have this thing called early retirement, where when you turn 62, you can go ahead and retire. And your benefits are cut a certain percentage of what you would get if you went ahead and went to. They set your retirement depending on when you were born, I think. Like mine was, I probably had to be like 66 or 67 to get 100% of my disability. Well, when 62 came and I got a chance to retire, I went ahead and did it. I retired early at 62 because I thought I'll have that retirement check. I don't have to work this 40-hour plus a week job. Well, you know what? Within 2 weeks of being retired from that job, I realized I had made a big mistake. And I couldn't live off it. So I ended up going back to work. Now, I still get the check, but it's not enough without working. And this last one here, this is just something that I've not recently, I mean, it's been several years that I've realized that this is something that's very important. For those of you who probably won't agree with this a lot, but I'm a Christian and I go to church and I believe in tithing. And I was setting a tithe out of my check every week, but I wasn't doing it correctly. I was taking the money out and sticking it in an envelope to take to church with me, and then Sunday morning would come and I wouldn't go to church. And then later on in the week, when I needed to buy a soda at the gas station with a candy bar, I'd get into the envelope that had my tithe money in it, take it out and say, well, I'll put it back in later. Well, guess what? It never got put back in there. So I was basically stealing from my church. Now I am a faithful tither. I set my tithe out of anything I get, not just my paycheck, but if I sell something online, I have an online yard sale site. If I sell something online, I take 10% off of that and put it back. And I don't touch it. I put it in an envelope and I forget about it completely. That money doesn't belong to me. My life has been so much more enriched since I've started doing this. Yeah, I have struggles. And I do have to watch every penny that I spend. I have to comparison. I have to shop the sales, use coupons when I can. But I am so much better off now than I was back in the day when I done all this stuff. And I just want you guys to know, if you're young and healthy and you have a job and you're able to work, please do some of these things and set your future up for when you come to the retirement that you can fully 100% retire and not have to go back to work when you're an older person like I am. Because it makes a difference, believe me. This stuff really does make a difference. And once again, I want to remind you that I am going to be having the drawing on the 25th. My first giveaway, because of my anniversary of being on YouTube. This video is getting a little long, I realize that. It'll be my 1 month anniversary, and so I've got a little thing that I want to give away. So come back for that on the 23rd. And so you can find out how the drawing goes. And then I'll draw it on Christmas Day. announce the winner, and then I'll put it in the mail to that person. I just want to thank you guys for coming tonight. And if you've stuck in here this long, I know this is getting to be, it's almost 30 minutes now. I thank you very much for that. I hope you've learned some things from my mistakes. Maybe you won't make the same mistakes. Maybe this will cause a light bulb to go over on your head and you'll be like, oh, I never thought of that. It does make a difference. So thanks again for stopping in, and come back and see me. Thanks. Bye, y'all.